Hi, welcome back to another episode of Anyone Can Paint. We're going to start with a brand new painting this week. This one's going to be different than we've ever done before. This is going to be an ocean scene. We're going to have kind of a sunset kind of a look to it. It's going to be having some oranges and some yellows back in there. We'll have some clouds kind of swooping through. Down here is going to be where the water is. We'll have a wave coming in. And of course we're going to have some rocks. Yeah! You gotta love the rocks. We're going to prep the sky a little different than what we've ever done before. This will kind of help answer the question I get often, is you always hear, I don't want to paint with acrylics because they dry too fast. Well, I obviously think that that's a benefit to it. But in this regard, we want the paint to stay wet. And I'll show you a couple tips on how you can make sure that that happens. I'm going to use the extra large brush because it's such a larger area to cover. This is about 1 3/4 wide, I think, and it weighs like 20 pounds. It's pretty heavy. So what you want to do first is you want to kind of spray the sky area and get that wet, and just kind of work it in just so it's kind of evenly put across. Then you can go into white or gesso. Now I'm going to go into gesso as we've talked about this before. And you want to put on a pretty good coat of, again, either white or gesso. Now because of the water, it's going to make this a little creamier. And that's what we want. And just make sure it's pretty evened out, because we want to be able to move some color around. This will be very similar to what oil artists do because their paints stay wet longer. Now we're going to start down in the horizon area. And I've already got some white on my brush. I'm going to pull some gesso out on my palette. Again, this is just a little bit thinner version of white paint. I'm going to add a little bit of yellow or orange to it and incorporate that in here. Now because this is wet and it's white, this automatically will start to dilute that color, and you can see that it softens it right up. And I'm just going to work this right along the horizon line. I'm going to grab a little bit more. I'll be right back. Just loading more on my brush. I want this to go up a little bit higher. And then I'm going to go, without cleaning my brush, I'm going to go right into some yellow. And again, this is all still wet. And I'm going to incorporate some yellow up here. Now you have some options here. If that yellow seems to be too bright, you can always grab some white and soften that up even more so than what it currently is. And I'm going to get a little bit of that and soften that up at the top. And soften, it just means that it just kind of knocks down the intensity of it. Then just kind of work that into the orange where you don't really see where one starts and one stops. Next one I'm going to do is I'm going to get some orange and some blue, and this is going to make a gray color. And then I'm probably going to add a little bit of white to this. And this will be one of those things that we'll play with here a little bit. I'm getting a bit of a glare. Yeah, that'll work. And because this is still wet, this is just kind of softening right in to the paint. And then down here you can have it kind of going across where it shows a little bit of clouds that are drifting a little bit. And then we're going to reload, do the same thing on the other side. Now this, what we're going through, is going to be a little bit of a process because you're just going to kind of be playing with this a little bit till you kind of get the colors that you want. And you kind of have things placed where you want them to go. Again, these are going to be clouds that are further away. And if you want to make these clouds darker, you just simply reload again with some blue and some orange, and you just don't put as much or any white into it. But again, this is just one of those feel things where you can kind of get it to where you want it to be. Now this got a little bit more blue in it, which is perfectly fine. And see how I'm still moving the paint around because the paint is still wet. I'm going to step back just for a second. I'm getting a little bit of a glare so I can see. I'm going to go back on the right hand side and darken this up a little bit. Maybe not quite that much. And I'm going to step back and take a look. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean out my brush. And again, this is still pretty wet. But if this was starting to dry on you, maybe you didn't put as much white on as I did when I started, all you need to do is to step back, get your spray bottle, and just lightly mist it, clean out your brush, and then you just work that moisture back into your paint, and you'll notice that your paint will start to cream right back up. So what I'm doing now, I clean my brush, and now I'm just going to soften some of these edges. And again, softening means you're just fading them so they're just not as intense. And I'm going to clean my brush again because I just picked up some of that color. This is really, what we're doing now is exactly what oil artists go through. This is just exactly like it. So you can see this paint is staying wet. So acrylics don't have to dry as quick as you want unless that's what you want that to happen. But you can keep them wet. You just need to know how to manipulate them a little bit. Again, I'm going to stand back and take a look. All right, now what you can do, now that those darker clouds are in, you can go back to some white and orange, or you can go to white and yellow, and you can incorporate maybe some brighter color into that. Kind of brighten it back up a little bit. So I just got some white and some yellow. Now I'm going to go back in and make those colors a little bit brighter in some areas. And I'm going to grab some more white, a little bit more orange. And really, because you're doing this, you can go actually back over some of your dark. And if you don't push too hard in it, you can just kind of lightly fade over that. And that gives you that impression that those are further back. And all you're doing is, again, just softening those up. I'm just reloading. You can bring some of the color back over this way and open the sky back up a little bit more. But it's almost like with everything that we've done before with highlighting, you don't want to necessarily cover anything up unless that's how you want it. But see how this kind of fades in and out? Kind of helps push all that back a little bit, like it's a little bit further away. But see how I'm still able to move color around? I mean, this is still kind of wet. I'm going to reload, and I'm going to grab a little bit more white and some yellow. Kind of work some of this way. And I'm going to stand back and take a look. That's bad. I need to do something with this edge right there. I think we'll go with that. And obviously, if you don't like your sky like that, you can certainly get it to the how you want it to be. But that was really just to show you the steps and what you can do. And this paint is still wet. I mean, it is still wet. So again, if it starts to dry on you, and you'll know when it's starting to dry, because as you're doing this, you'll feel it start to pull a little bit. You're not pulling the color too much. That's when you really want to stop. Stand back, lightly mist it, clean out your brush so you've got a clean brush. Work that moisture back into your color, and then you'll be able to move things around again. But you can do that for a long, long, long time. I did a painting, it was probably almost a year ago, where I had a lot of sky in it. And I stayed in the sky and worked in there for over an hour just by doing that. When you start to feel it dry, just lightly mist it, work your wet back into your paint, and you can just keep moving it around. All right, sky's basically done. Not that we can't go back and change things and touch things up later, but we've kind of got everything where we need it to be. Next thing we're going to do is start blocking in the water. Now, this is another kind of a technique that's a little bit different than what we've done. This is going to be a combination of some white, some blue, and some green. Now, you really want to relax when you're doing this and just play with this. You don't want to smooth this all out and make it one flat color. You want to leave this kind of choppy, and I'll show you how you do that. You want to grab some white, some blue, and some green. So I've got white, blue, and actually I got brown in there for some reason. Let me get this out and I'll reload. But white, blue, and green. So I'm just again grabbing some white, a little bit of blue, a little bit of green. And then you're actually just going to blend this right on the canvas. And if it starts to get too dark, you just adjust it by picking up some white and you just go in and kind of calm it down a little bit. But what you want to do is leave some of your brush strokes. And if it's too green, you just pick up some blue. But again, you don't want to overblend this. Back where the horizon is, and that's where the water and the sky meet, that needs to be fairly straight, not like a ruler straight, but fairly straight across. But the whole thing is that you want to allow these brush strokes to show in there. And when that dries, that will help us identify where we want our highlights to go. So again, I'm just picking up some white, blue, and green and adjusting it on the canvas as I'm going. And it's okay if you have areas that have more green in it or some more blue in it. It's perfectly fine. And if things get too dark, you just grab a little bit of white and you can incorporate that in there. Not that that was too dark, but I just wanted to show you that you can just adjust all this right up here. And the idea is that you want some thicker strokes. And you can just go back and forth between blue and green. But see how I'm not smoothing this out. You want to leave this in, and you can almost already get a sense of some water movement already. I mean, if you do a really good close-up here, you can see the brush strokes. See how there's got some movement, goes back and forth, and you can almost pick up a little bit of the wave action already that would come from an ocean. But that's just by nice, relaxed brush strokes. Just kind of let it happen. Now I'm going to work this all the way down. We had some big rocks. I didn't point this out. I'm sorry. There's going to be big rocks that are around this area. So this area in here is going to be water. So we're just going to go ahead and just do all the underpainting for the water. And you can see there's some areas that I have a little bit more blue is showing, a little bit more green showing, and that's perfectly fine. Because in real life, that's exactly how it happens. And I'm just doing really lazy strokes. I'll go down here so you can see. I'm just kind of just going back and forth, but not smoothing this out flat. And just kind of play with this. Just let it happen. Like I said, when it gets a little bit too dark, just grab a little bit of white on your brush. You can always go in and smooth it back out or kind of soften it a little bit, just to change up the colors. This is almost, but it's even more fun than just blopping in rocks, because you know how when we blop in rocks, we just kind of accept what happens, the shapes, and we kind of make rocks from that. This is really basically the same thing. Just kind of go with this, and you'll see when we get to the highlighting part is when I'll start looking and seeking out brush strokes. And that's exactly how you can get your waves and get those highlighted, and it looks so natural, and it just kind of just happens on its own. More natural than it would be if you went in and you planned to put strokes here, put them there. And this is just a lot of fun, knowing that you can be loose and you really can't mess this up. And just kind of let it happen. Let me get a little bit of green so I can mix in there. Maybe I'll get a touch of white. And the paint is going on a little bit thicker. That kind of helps to ensure that your brush strokes kind of stay true. And add a little bit of blue to this. Ocean scenes can be a lot of fun. Some of my students, we've done some paintings, and we currently are, that's got like a sunset scene to it, and sometimes people struggle with it a little bit, and I think it's because they try to make them so perfect, and try to get the perfect sunset, and you know, the looser and the more freedom that you have in your brush strokes, the more realistic painting tends to be. And you just have to have that attitude of just kind of letting it happen, just relax. You know, with acrylics especially, you can always go in and change things and paint over it if you didn't like it, which is certainly an advantage over maybe like oils and watercolor. But if you just have the attitude that it's all right, it's going to work out, it generally does. And just have a good time with this. I mean, your strokes are nice and loose, but hopefully you can see that there's just an array of brush strokes that are in there. And again, we will be using some of those, probably a lot of them, to determine where the tops of our waves are and where our highlights go. And you want a nice little influx of some greens and some blues. Again, the ocean really has those colors in it. Some days, depending on how bright it is, you see it a little bit more green. Sometimes it's a little bit more blue. But that changes due to the conditions. So with our current conditions, we're just going to assume it's a little of both. And I'm kind of painting around the rocks, but you can see that I'm getting inside of that, because when we put the underpainting on that, which we'll do after the water, we'll go back and reshape all that. I'm just kind of twisting and turning the brush. Just lazy strokes, kind of the wave kind of action. I'm just grabbing a little bit of white just to kind of mix this up a little bit, just so there's a little bit more contrast between all this. And I'm just grabbing a little bit of white, which is on the palette from we were messing around with the sky. Again, I'm just grabbing a little bit more white. I'm not putting a lot, just a little bit, just to kind of break some of this up a little bit. I'm just kind of touching up my horizon line a little bit while I'm here. Now, because you're putting your paint on thicker, this obviously is going to take a little bit longer to dry, but so if you were at home and if you wanted to continue to work on your water before you did anything else, that certainly is your option. Just put a hair dryer on this because this is thicker. So you want, it's going to take a little bit more to dry. But hopefully you can kind of get a good sense of, you can almost kind of feel the wave movement in there already, and this is just basically thrown in and just really loose, really relaxed, just kind of letting it happen. Just kind of going back and forth between some blues and greens, adding a little white once in a while. Once you've got that blocked in, you can clean out your brush. And then, of course, it's time to start blocking in where the rocks are going to go. And this is just going to be done with some blue and brown. And again, I don't mix it. I just grab it on my brush, and we're just going to come up here and throw it in. Now you can always, again, that's pretty dark, so you can just grab brown and you can incorporate that. I'm just reloading the brush. And this is kind of going on a little thick too. This is where this is going to be the outside edge of the rocks. What happens in the middle doesn't matter. We'll single all these out later. But you want these to be kind of jaggedy. Again, I'm just reloading some blue and brown again. It goes right down into the water. This, of course, does not matter. Just focus on those outer edges. And just kind of continue with this. And again, if you have areas where there's a little bit more blue than brown showing, that doesn't hurt a thing. Some of that will get covered up, some of it won't. Again, just don't smooth this really flat till you have one just flat color. It's more fun to do it this way, plus there's a lot of advantages you'll have by not over blending. And this again is thicker, just like what it was up here, so it's a little bit different than what we're used to doing. I'm gonna leave a little gap of water here, then I'm gonna put some rocks over in this area. Just gonna grab some more blue or brown. And this is as far as we're gonna get this week. We'll pick right up where we left off last time, or where we left off this time. Make sure you send me or email me any kind of photographs you've taken if you're on vacation or around your house or up north or at your grandma's house, whatever, that you think could make a good painting. Send them in, let me take a look at them, and maybe we can incorporate it into a painting that we do here. Also, if you do any painting at home and you'd like some advice or some help on it, again, send me a photograph or an email copy of it, and I would be more than happy to give you some hints on where you should take it to the next step, or maybe you should change some things or whatever. I love doing that. Please send those in. Remember that you can do this. Honest to God, you can. I promise you, you can. Anyone can paint. Thanks for watching. We'll see you.